Welcome, party people, back to another Kraken Cast. Kraken Cast, the podcast where we talk to people in the video game industry, streamers, devs, artists, and everyone in between. Today, we are joined by Twitch partner and streamer, Elder Scrolls Online stream team member, Matygon. Matygon is an important and integral part of the Elder Scrolls category on Twitch, and we are so excited. If you're listening to this in audio only mode, if you can take a minute and download it, it would help us out a lot. And if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, clicking that subscribe button is the way to really help us get more Kraken Cast. If you have any guests you would like to see, feel free to just leave a comment with that guest, and I'm happy to try to get them on the show. Thank you so much for being here today, Matygon.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really an honor to have you on. When I was first cruising around the Elder Scrolls directory, just watching as a viewer before I streamed, you were actually one of the first 5 streams I found. So for anybody who might not know you, when did you actually start streaming? When did you decide, hey, I'm gonna stream a bit on Twitch?
Let's see. It started, the notion of it started back in 2019, like around January, February, and people kind of put the bug in my ear of hey, you know what, maybe you would make a pretty good streamer. You know, you've got a good voice, you're kind of commanding being a teacher and stuff, and sometimes that's a lot of what we do. And I'm like, nah, I said, no, that's not for me and everything. And as the months kind of went by, I was talking to my friend T the Khajiit, and she was kind of supporting me. He's like, you should try that. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, well, let me see how hard it is to do things. I'm not a big fan of change. It always takes me a little bit slow. Even you helping me out tonight get set up, it takes me a little bit to get going. And my mods know this way too well. But I said, you know what? I'm going to need a Twitter account. You know, that's what streamers do. They talk to their community and advertise. You know, when they're going. I said I should have a Twitter account that's for that. So I started that up in June, and a week later I downloaded the OBS Studio to see how easy it was to set up, and it was pretty easy. I kind of made my way. I mean, I didn't know all the settings and everything, and but I hit the go live button on June 18th of 2019, which sounds really weird to say.
Yeah, I was actually looking at your Twitch tracker outside that kind of has all that data on there, and see that you started in June. You actually had a pretty decent ascent, going from 26, 51, 99. Your average went up. It did come back down and stabilize, but I'm just curious, getting into streaming, what kind of support network did you have? Obviously you mentioned T convincing you to get into streaming and things like that, but I'm just kind of curious, obviously, since you had such a kind of a quick rise, at least to a decent, stable viewership, what your support network looked like, and, the sort of people you kind of brought in with you to Twitch.
Right. When anyone asks me that question, especially when I was within my first year, I'm like, well, it might not be the way everybody does it, but again, it's leaning on ESO fam. I was in the family, for 2 years prior. So I talked, and I made legitimate friends. I made friends with Ninja 614. We're the same age, and we tease each other like brothers. And everybody knew me in his stream. Everybody knew me in T the Khajiit stream. I became her moderator, which was I was very pleased about, and because her trust means the world to me. I am a fan of going into people's streams and saying hello, no matter how big or how small, and doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and sharing, who I was, being a trumpet player, professional trumpet player, which was kind of a new thing. At the time, Ninja 614's son was taking trumpet. And I said, hey, if you need anything, if you need, any stuff, or a lesson or something like that, just let me know. Or, I'm figuring out, this new distance learning type thing, and, I can help out. He's like, oh, thank you very much. And I remember Ninja Scoot was having a hard time getting motivated. I said, you know what? I'm going to record something to get him going. Because he liked the game, he liked the stuff. And I recorded the Morrowind theme, which has now become a very famous, theme and request in my channel. And Ninja played it on stream, and I got known for that Morrowind on trumpet, because people were like, that's really you? I'm like, yeah, that's me. Because you never know when someone says that you're a professional at something. Are they just blowing smoke, or what's kind of going on with it? And I'm just like, no, that's kind of my profession. I've been doing it for a long time, and so it was over a course of 2 years of people knowing me, so that when I went to go hit that button, it was almost kind of like a joke early on of people like saying, "Oh, I'm going to go follow you." I did. I think I had over 100 people already following me that were like, "You hit the button," and I'm like, "Yeah, I did." And so like you said, it seemed established and fast because I think people thought I was there all along already, because I was just a member of that community, which again, and you know this too with the ESO fam, because you've talked about this with so many people about this, that we're unique in that way, that we all want to see and embrace new people. And like, I always love that line that you've said so many times, that all ships, rise. Yeah. And it was definitely that thing in my case that we, when I started, the fam showed up. And it was just amazing. So the support was wonderful. So I always tell people, it's like, when they say advice, I'm like, well, get yourself known for a couple of years in a family of stream, family stream stuff, and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Yeah, I got that from my dad. It's the rising tide raises all ships. So when you mix
That's
that,
it.
when you mix that with the phrase that I first heard from Reishi Sports, but it's permeated around enough that when we interviewed Rich even said community, not competition. It is a unique feel within the Elder Scrolls category. I'm sure there might be other categories like it, but definitely true of our home. I really like what you were saying about how you got into it, though, because it covers two different things. One is streaming. You can give as much advice to somebody, as much encouragement and stuff, but at the end of the day, it is such a unique journey, because you have to kind of find your own voice, which you found early on with the fact that you could bring in your music to stream, which I think is really kind of an important thing for anybody to take away, whether they already are streaming, thinking about streaming, is those things that make you unique, or that you're already a professional in, or that about. Being able to bring those to stream adds so much than just another person kind of playing the game.
And what's weird about that is that, we always give that advice of be who you are, is what I do is not popular in a sense of, like, I was like watching YouTube videos of what works and what doesn't work. And I remember that the top 3 things that this guy mentioned was the things that I do. It's like, don't play an instrument or sing, don't, it was something like, I guess I watched the wrong person or something. Because they're just like, you got to make sure that you're on your guard and you do all the things. And I'm like, no, I'm all about kindness and acceptance, no matter who you are. And it was, don't use a picture, you must use a camera. And those are the top 3. I'm like, broke it.
It's amazing the advice that's out there. Maybe it was true, or maybe it was true for them. That's why I always say it's different for everyone, because my favorite streams to watch, when I'm not talking about watching Elder Scrolls Online, when I'm not watching streams to study people in the MMO space or things like that, when I'm just wanting to relax, I watch music streams, and there's some really popular streams that are just people playing music. And the VTubing thing is really kicking off. Obviously, it got big in Japan first, but you have a lot of people, using avatars and things like that. So it's funny how that probably years ago, when that advice was given, was true.
Right.
But the space changes and morphs so fast. So what people might have wanted years ago is not what they obviously wanted when you came in, because you're like, nope, I'm going to use an avatar. I'm going to play music. I'm going to be kind and inviting to everyone. And obviously that's paid dividends for you.
And what's weird is that maybe it's the old man in me. That's I don't consider myself a VTuber. It's like there's a lot of times it's the same way I don't consider myself a Generation X. I'm an '80s kid. I grew up in the '80s. It's like a lot of the labels that get put on afterwards. I don't kind of well, I guess I'm that, but I'm like my avatar. I'd even use the term avatar. It was made by the very first person that came into my Twitch stream, and you know how wonderful that is. The first person that comes in and talks to you, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's not just me talking to the wall, at that point. And his name was Sammy Glitch. He came in, and I had watched his his streams before, and he had done some Elder Scrolls and some Destiny and other things, and he's like, well, I'm a professional animator. I just had a picture. I had a picture of what you see now as covering my chat. It was just a wonderful picture. And he's like, well, I can animate that. I'm a professional animator. And kind of like, I said, like the trumpet player, professional trumpet player. I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, and everything like that. He says, no, I could do something for you, and I could get you, a little animated background or something. Like if you see in the background, there's, of what you see here, you've got the, the animation, and even like the reflection off of the helmet and back of me. I mean, he did such an incredible job. And it's on a 1-minute loop, so there's enough turning of the head, flicking of the ears, that I always get asked, is that a mask? What's going on with that? And so I love telling people that my very first person in chat made this for me. And I've never planned to do this. It was never my thought, like, oh, I'm not going to use a camera. But I'm like, I got this wonderful gift, and it made me stand out. And I think that's another tip of if you can find something that makes you unique, embrace that. I was always like that, where everyone, feared in school and in high school, especially when I was in high school, of being different and being out of the crowd. I liked being different. I liked being, the odd person out, or the someone that was into trumpet playing or other things, or D&D, or, other of those things. I like the differences because I love the uniqueness of things. And so I actually look towards those opportunities of uniqueness. And I'm like, I don't see anybody with this, and yeah, my mouth doesn't move. I don't need it to, it's like, oh, it might get repetitive, but it's still unique.
Yeah. I took me a few times watching your stream for lengthy amount of time because it's in the bottom corner when you're playing the game. It took me a while to realize that. I looked at it and went, oh, that's a little too polished to be a mask, because that was my split-second reaction. Then I went,
right.
But then because of the 1-minute loop, I'm like, oh, cool, because I know about VTubing stuff. I'm like, oh, it's got a face rig. And then right. I didn't realize until you'd mentioned it on stream maybe a month ago to somebody else. I had never dawned on me. I never paid, I guess, enough attention. I just listened to your voice, listened to your music, watched what was going on in the game for so long. I never noticed the looping of it. So I thought you had it it rigged up to your face for the longest time.
Right. And it's now become my favorite. I don't know if we call it a game. My favorite thing to do, especially when I get somebody that comes into the stream that's a little bit younger and doesn't really know how to talk within a stream or something. So they might say a little something rude, and they're like, WTF, what am I looking at? Or something like that. I go, hi, how you doing? I'm like, I'm going to give you a second chance on this. I'm like, how you doing? I'm like, hey, do ! Avatar. And I have a little script that goes through actually what I just told you. Hey, this was actually made by the first person to hang out in my stream. And this is what it is. And then I see them then type, dude, that's so sick. I'm like, gotcha.
I think it's really what you just said. There's probably some of the best advice ever, because it's easy to say, turn yourself up to 11 or be yourself. But I think what you said is actually, for me at least, has been the most resonating advice that I try to give to people or that I've heard, which is embrace the unique, or in my case, I say embrace the weirdness. Embrace, when you're talking about being yourself, don't mask the things that make you. I think that you already coming in with that kind of mindset of like, I'm not going to take, I'm an 80s kid, Gen X, VTube. I'm not going to take these labels, but I am going to do the things that make me me, and I'm going to embrace them and grow them. I think that is the best advice anybody can follow, because every weird thing or off the cuff thing that I've done like that has always seems to resonate so much more with people in the community than
exactly
worrying about it. I was like, better to take the chance, I've always felt, on showing your weirdness than to hide it away.
Yeah, I think weirdness is never wrong, because you'll either have someone that'll be a fan of you or you won't. And when you're okay with who you are, weird is good. I think we've seen that as we've gotten older. I think going through the 80s and going through stuff, and I think going through certain things in my life where you had to, being who you were was advantageous, and I was always an inquisitive mind, and I don't mind being wrong. The big thing in my chat and my channel is I always say it takes a village with me. And I'm like, it's like sometimes a little slow, working on things or coming up with things, or I just don't see it. They're like, oh, it's this, it's like that. I was like, oh, thank you. It's like, I know that I'm confident enough that I know a lot about a lot of things, but I don't know everything. And I don't want to pretend to be that I know everything. And I think that opens me up to a lot of wonderful things. And it opened me up to being a streamer. It really did. I never would have thought 2.5 years ago that this would be my main job, really. I played trumpet more on stream than I do on gigs, especially during the pandemic. So it's it really was a blessing in that who I was resonated with people.
I agree. And the take a village thing, I agree. I always say I didn't know how much I didn't know. Like, I thought I knew. I played the game for years, or I've done this thing for years. I've studied this thing for years. And then chat will let me know all these things. And I'm just, like you said, I just embrace it too, because it does take a village. Because I thought I knew a lot, but turns out that what I thought I knew was not all there was. And never know what you don't know until...
Yeah, and you never know what you don't know when you're streaming too, because you know this and stuff. You're dealing with 10 things going on, right? I mean, you running this podcast right now. What you talking to me is one of the 20 things that you're probably doing. Looking at chat, making sure levels are going, looking at this screen, looking at that stuff, and so to do that multitasking, all at the same time, sometimes you forget the simplest of things. We talk about streamer brain all the time, where you're just like, I'm just like, I don't know nothing at this point.
Yeah, I literally have a document I keep open all stream in a tab called My Stream Brain. So when somebody gives me an idea or a suggestion, or I think of something, I can put it in there, because I know I will otherwise forget it. But there's so much going on, and that's to kind of extrapolate on that a bit. Streaming seems overwhelming. A lot of things can seem overwhelming, and that's why I really like doing this podcast, is so we can kind of talk about things like that. I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people getting into streamers are like, how do I keep up on chat and do this and do that? Well, when I started to stream today, just as an example, well before the podcast, Streamlabs froze up my OBS completely. My stream dropped. When I came back, all of my bot commands were still running for a giveaway, saying a giveaway was going and taking tickets, even though the giveaway was done. And this is like over a year in. So for anybody who is listening to this, who's watching it live or watching it on YouTube, technical difficulties are just par for the course, and don't let them rule you. Just breathe and kind of move, because you never know what you don't know about streaming, and something new will always crop itself up in tech.
Oh my gosh, if there was a pie of all the different things that could go wrong, and the biggest one is audio, and we all know this, it's like 3/4 of the pie is that I don't have audio. Wait, my audio levels are terrible. It's like, what's going on? It's like, okay, this is not doing that. It's crazy. I said most people have audio issues, well, part of why I wanted to get these headphones for our interview today, because I knew that it would bleed through with the mic that I have. And so I'm like, patience with me. I'm almost getting it. Locke, I'm almost there.
Awesome. And I want to roll back just a little bit before we move
Sure.
forward, because you've covered so many great things, and you were
I know
mentioning,
I kind of put things together.
yeah. And that's great. That's amazing. I'm always fresh to roll back a little bit. When you're talking about getting into streaming, obviously you mentioned 2 years being part of the ESO fam, being a viewer, being a mod, knowing everybody. And I think that's so important, because I always bring up the importance of networking, and then I kind of like go on from that, because people hear networking and they hear it as a bad word or think it just means spamming their link. But what you did is what I would advise anybody to do, getting into streaming. You don't have to take 2 years to build up a community, but the two
Right.
big things I think you did there is, one, people when they start streaming don't think to bring the communities they already have, even if it's not, in your case it was the game you were going to be streaming, but in my case I still brought people from my live action role playing, with me. And the other thing is, networking is at the end of the day making friends. It is getting to know your peers without any expectations on them. It's talking to them, being involved in their chats, being on their discords, getting to know them. And then if something comes up in the future where you need a piece of advice, or you want them to be involved with a collaboration, you can ask. But even then, not having the expectation that they have to do something, kind of like, just like any friend, like you can ask for help. And that's why I say networking is important. And I feel like people don't fully grasp it, because networking really is joining a community, being part of a community, getting to know people on a personal level without expectations. So I think what you did coming in, you already had all of that kind of down, but I think it's really good for people to hear, like, those are the things that really kind of like gave you like the leg up, or let you kind of start off on the right foot.
Yeah, and I'm also, kind of like when I said, with my terminology of things, I actually said that to a student of mine today, because I was teaching some trumpet lessons. I'm like, I hate the word practice, but if you tell me that I can play all day, I'll play all day. It's a terminology for some people, and I think within the term of networking, it can give people, like you were saying, wonderfully, is that they might not know what that really encompasses. Where I kind of like, saying, communication, or like you said, community. It's like, so those are the things that you build up. You build up friendships. You build up communications. You get involved with somebody else and say, hey, here's this thing I made. Don't you think it's cool? And, oh, yeah. And you start to do that, and a number of people will notice or keep in touch, with you that way. And you'll find things to talk about in Discord, and those types of things. So I think like you said, that when people say the word networking, it's not I don't want to say that it's a negative term, because it's a good term to use, but I don't think people know all the bullet points underneath of what that encompasses. They might know one or two of and then some very poorly, because we've all experienced that. You'll get someone, we are very forgiving and welcoming, but you'll get someone who'll just pop in your chat, hey, go follow me at blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, there's not a good way of networking and communication. So it's multifaceted in that way.
Yeah, I think that's the better way to kind of phrase it, which is not that networking's a bad word to some people, but it is very much a misunderstood like thing. And there's a lot of people wanting to give advice out there that don't necessarily know what it is. So I'm fortunate enough to come from a background where I used to organize events, or where I worked doing reputation management for tech companies. So like I have a grasp on like peer-to-peer networking, peer-to-business networking, and things like that. Whereas most people, again, we're expecting somebody who just starts streaming to not just know all the technical stuff, but the etiquette stuff. So that's why, like you said, we're very forgiving. But that's why always when that happens in my chat, I try to kind of like give them a moment when they come and go, what am I looking at? I always try to give somebody who does that a moment to be like, if they stick around, like, hey, let's talk just a minute about, etiquette. It's great that you're a streamer, but I don't want you to find yourself in deeper waters, because, there's other people who are not going to be as forgiving, and this is not the way to go about that. Try to take a moment when I can to educate, like, here's a better way to go about this.
Yeah, I that education, and I think that teacher in me as well, has that, I give you another chance at it, and enjoys the fact of teaching somebody about that, because Gosh, I remember back when I first started to use like TeamSpeak or something like that. I felt so weird when I was talking into a microphone to other people, back in like the WoW days and stuff. And I'm like, I don't sound like that in normal life. Why am I talking like that onto a mic? So I can always see how that translates to someone who is not comfortable, who is an introvert, and they're trying to say something in a chat and get noticed. And they don't know how to do that. So I always give them that little bit of a speed bump. I'm just like, oh, okay, that wasn't quite how you do it. Hello, how are you today? What'd you have for breakfast? Are you doing okay today? How was your Friday and everything? And more often than not, I've had a couple that just leave because they don't know what to do. But more often than not, they're just like, well, I had school today, and I'm just like, well, how'd that go? It was rough. And I'm just like, well, it sounded like a rough thing. Well, welcome on in. And they're like, oh, thank you. I think sometimes they don't, a lot of, and I associate it with younger people, but it can be anybody who is socially awkward, and just, has to realize that we're still just having a conversation. It's just through a different mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really, really a great way to approach it. Kind of moving on there from, I love how you got into it. Love your take on things. Again, when we're talking about being yourself, the fact that you are a teacher, so you kind of bring that mindset and approach to things, I think is also really unique and really, really special. And you also mentioned, as somebody who's a professional musician, going through COVID, not being able to book gigs and things like that, and really kind of needing to double down on streaming. I'm just curious about how you correlate the streaming parts of your life with the teaching and the musician parts, because obviously a lot of your teacher comes through in your streams, obviously the musician comes through in the streams, but I'm just curious how that kind of like how you balance those, or how you balance those before COVID, and how like as we leave COVID, how you're balancing the streamer with the musician and with the teacher.
It's a little weird because going in, I was still kind of trying to get my bearings. I was, let's see. So because I think I remember it was March that I really was staying inside of 2020. So it hadn't been a full year yet. I wasn't on Stream Team or a partner yet. So I was just kind of doing my thing. And I think it was at first just like a continuation of trying to merge, survive in what was kind of going on. And then I think I realized that, I can use this medium as a way to teach through like Zoom, lessons and teach courses through Google Meets and those things, that are set up. And still get a lot of enjoyment out of playing my trumpet through, through the streams. And I started to make, my chat knows this. It doesn't take much to twitch my arm to start playing. Basically, any kind of event of anything. I actually use the hype trains. I know some people don't like the hype trains and other people love the hype trains. I like the hype trains because it gives me a wonderful excuse to break out the trumpet. And I'm just like, so as soon as that, I'm just like, hey, everybody, we're close. Will I get the trumpet out? And they're like, yeah, and everything. And I'll play some blues backgrounds and I'll get my trumpet out and perform and do that. And it becomes a celebration. I'm at heart, even though I never lived there, but I visited, I'm at heart New Orleans. Let's get out some food. Let's get together. Everybody is welcome at this table. Let's have a good time and party with each other and just celebrate each other. And that's what that became. And even with now that we're going back, I've started, doing some in-person, teachings and stuff that I don't think this is going to change too much, as far as the streaming stuff in there. Times might be a little bit different because I've got to fit some things because of travel time and stuff again, which is always so weird. But I'm kind of seeing, it, being similar going forward.
Awesome. It's really good that you're going to be able to keep the streamer part and keep all those other facets of your life, and that's really cool to hear about the journey there. Kind of speaking about,
and it's oh, sorry, let me just tag on one little bit there. And I have never taken for granted how lucky I was too that I had the capability of all that. That I had the capability, that I had already almost a year established of streaming, that I could really focus on that, and and help pay bills through that, and that I could go to online teaching, and I could go to online, because so many people, because of their types of jobs, that wasn't possible, in there. So I was definitely, very fortunate that everything that I had done job wise, I could do online, and that was very special. Yeah,
it's always good to take stock of that. I think a lot about how I was in a fortunate position myself. I started streaming when we were already in to COVID, but I've always taken stock. Like, I'm very fortunate that my skill set, my finances, and things were in a place where I could do that. Like yourself, you'd already been streaming for a while, so it's a blessing that those fortunes were there. And it's kind of going on. We've talked a bit about it, because obviously the primary game that you stream is the Elder Scrolls Online. I can look at your stats and look at all the games you streamed and the times they streamed, and you've streamed 4,533 hours of Elder Scrolls Online, which means obviously playing the game for years prior to even streaming it. There's going to be a lot more hours there. So before we even talk about streaming ESO, because you were part of the community, you were watching streamers, modding for streamers years before you did it, what is it about Elder Scrolls Online? What brought you to the Elder Scrolls Online community in the first place?
It actually was YouTube, which was because I started playing the game like a lot of people would say. I started at beta, and then took a little break afterwards because of the rocky start, and because there are other things going on and everything. Everybody kind of did that, and I came back fairly quickly within that. But I did not know anything about the game other than I liked playing with my friend, my in real life friend, and we could play stuff together. It was my co-op for the first, and then he kind of stopped playing, and I kept playing, and so I played it very much like a single player game, or co-op, and things in Overworld, Landslof, were hard for me to do. I knew nothing about sets. I didn't know anything about stuff. I didn't know anything about how the games work. I didn't know about end games, or and the greatest end game of all time, housing end game. I had no idea about these things, or crafting. I didn't do anything. I still love showing Inklings every once in a while my first achievement when I crafted my first item. I've been playing for like 3 years. And it makes him cry a little. And then my first writ, and I played it very single player, and then I was just like, what? I want to get into it a little bit more and learn some things. And I don't know if this person was a good example or a bad example, but KevDoit was my first YouTube watching it.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Let me interrupt you there real quick.
Yeah.
KevDoit's content. I sometimes talk about inspirations. If I have to look at my inspirations as a streamer, KevDoit is on the list.
Yes.
KevDoit's videos, which I followed KevDoit, made the risky change to go to like variety with his channel and kind of on YouTube and stuff. Yeah, KevDoit is also one of my entry points to Elder Scrolls. So it's awesome to hear you say that. In fact, one of my happiest moments was just a few weeks ago. KevDoit was on, and I'm like, oh, we're ready. I don't know what game Kev's playing. Here's what you need to know about KevDoit. We're raiding KevDoit because I'm in a position to raid this person that inspired me. So yeah, that's sorry for the aside there. It's just exciting to hear, because KevDoit's another person who I saw on YouTube was like, oh, that's it's so educational, but also just hilarious, and I loved it from the start.
Hilarious, and okay, and if I want to fanboy a little bit, stuff like that, KevDoit knows my name. I'll go into it and he's like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" I'm just like, he knows me now. I got like a raid from him once, and I was just like, That's my jaw dropping. I know you can't see it on the screen, but just like I got Ray Kev to it. Kev, he knows who I am. So and actually he's okay. So I'm gonna give you my path. Okay. This is good. All right. So Kev to it, started to watch. And he was hilarious. Just loved all this stuff. I remember what video was. It was a two-handed Warden when Warden was coming out. That's what actually really got me into that next level of I want to learn about things. But I wanted something that was kind of easy. I was forever a healer. A lot of people actually knew me when I first got into it. I was a healer main. I'm like, I can't do DPS, which is so funny to hear because everybody talks about my DPS now. I'm like, and I kind of actually brag about it a little bit because I'm one of those people that I could never do that, and I do. And so I watched Kevin. It was so hilarious. And then he would have a video with this guy named Deltia, and so then I got into Deltia, and then somebody on Twitch I found out about Twitch, and this wonderful person named Ella Wendy had these wonderful calming videos. Part of my calmingness of that was through Ella Wendy, who I consider a great friend right now, which blows my mind because I watched, I think I've known her for like 4 or 5 years now. And just wonderful. So it was the three of them that was kind of my gateway passage into this. And I saw her wonderful housing and what she did. Delty, of course, had these wonderful, in-depth builds. Like if I wanted to know, what a parse was, or what a, or what the term penetration referred to, or other things, I'm like, okay, I would go do that. If I wanted that comedy, what was that next skit that Kev Do It was going to do? I would watch him. And then one day, he rated, I watched his Twitch, Kev Do It rated this biker guy, which I'm like, who is this guy? Ninja 624, 614? I don't know, stuff like that. Hilarious. Had me hooked off the minute, got me to like talk in the chat like anything. And I think because, again, I like uniqueness. I like differences. I'm like, he is the exact opposite of what I am. And I love that about him. And the fact that we started to build up a rapport and tease each other and have little call outs and things is just amazing. And I got to meet him in the Vegas event, last year, and it was a highlight for me. Don't tell him I said that. It was a highlight for me. I bought him a beer, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's just amazing. And we still joke about all the things and the stuff, and so I watched him, and then he raided one day this quiet little girl that I thought must have been like 15, 16 years old or something. And it was T_the_Khajiit. And she had this, this tiny voice, this small voice, and she was in PvP and taking over a castle on her own with 3 siege. And then these 4 people tried to come out and gank her, and she destroyed all 4 of them and went back to the trebuchets and took over the castle because that was her idea of fun. And I'm like, I am hooked. Hello, my name is Matygon. I'm just like that and everything. And I was just like, oh man. So a lot of people don't know because they'll see T doing whatever. I thought she was a PvPer when I first got it because she might be small. She might come off a certain way as and wonderful and kind and everything like. You don't mess with T. I would actually go around with T in PvP and. And I actually bought, because of T, because I was making, it was during Somerset or something, I had made an Altmer Nightblade, Matygon Nightblade, because that was all the rage right then. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make something that's kind of meta, or at least as much as I could do meta. And had them all leveled up. I was doing all of my stuff on it, and I found T, and I'm like, I'm trashing this. I made a Khajiit. I bought the Any Race, Any Alliance so I could be an EP Khajiit, so I could play with her. So people would say, why are you EP? I was like, because T is EP Khajiit. And so that I could run through content with her, because she would do that with her community. And she would be the only one left standing most of the time. And I was just like, oh my gosh. So she's actually a very, very good player. And the thing I loved and I learned through T was how to differently play a game. She zigs when you're supposed to zag. If the game or somebody tells you to go this way, she'll go around the other way. And I was like, that is the most refreshing thing ever. And it goes in line with what I've always talked about of the different, be different, do what you like to do, embrace the weird, embrace what's going on. And I'm like, gosh, I haven't been doing this in the game. And you can if you can see my thought process gear churning back then, and I didn't even know it back then, that the things that make you different are the things people are going to want to watch.
Yeah, that's exactly what makes you stand out in a crowd is your personality, the things you talk about, the things what makes you different. Also, I think ESO as a game lends itself to not following the beaten path. ESO streamer wise, I learned that from watching Vindalia. I was watching V, and I was like, I don't know if I want to stream, because sometimes I just walk around this map and just talk to people. If I'm streaming and I just want to walk around and talk to people, I don't think anyone's going to want to watch me do loops around a city. And here I am a year later doing loops around a city, talking half the day sometimes. Yeah, so.
Oh my God. The forever juggling is my favorite thing ever. Because if you get it, why we juggle, then you get it.
Yeah.
If you just think, why are you wasting your time juggling? Why don't you doing this? Like, well, you're just not going to get it. Running around, juggling, doing that, and again, especially when you're streaming it, that's the most wonderful way to connect with your community, because you're getting a flow of ideas as you're doing this stuff, and you're really engaging with your chat that way. I love trials, and I love veteran maelstrom arena and doing hard content, but it requires a focus face. It's I've actually been able to find a little happy medium with the single player arenas. I do teaching arenas. I'm like, all right, everybody. Basically, it's because I don't want to have to run through it very fast and try to score push. So I'm just like, all right, everybody, I'm going to teach you how to do this stuff. Don't mind if I die a few times. All right. We're going to teach you. Anybody got any questions? I was showing you what not to do in that situation. So
I admire all of you who can do trials as content. I deliberately avoid trials as content because I will always be pulled to chat, and if I'm pulled to chat, I know I'm in awe when I'm watching somebody like Ninja do a trial while drinking with other streamers. Well, occasionally going into focus face, but even in focus face, keeping up enough on chat that when he's out of focus face, he's readdressing something that was from 10 minutes. I'll never not be in awe. That's not me, but that is, again, we're all different, so I'll never not be in awe of that. Though I'll also never not be in awe of a trial I caught you in the other day when you punched a dragon in the face with your fist on your character. That was probably I tuned in exactly as that was happening, and I go, that was the single best moment. I'm like, oh, I wonder what Maddie's up to. Maddie's they're all doing trials together. I'll see Maddie's perspective, and here Maddie goes just punching a dragon in the face in a trial. I'm like, okay.
There you go. Well, it was one of those things. It was the perfect thing because I kind of brought back with Ninja the streamer trials on Thursday nights, and it was just a fun way to get together with people that kind of gel and devs and everything, and just go through content and drink and show people that you can have a lot of fun, and we don't care if you've got meta gear, you don't care if you got that, just having a good time. And as somebody mentioned, I see it in chat, I have a character called Budget Gandork. There's a wonderful person named Gandork who is a savant at the game. especially at the arenas. It's absolutely incredible. And I made a budget version of him, and I said, well, he's not the one that you wanted, but he's the only one you could afford. So a budget gander, and he's like a retired version. I put a pot belly on him. He actually wears Cadwell's pot on top, and a baker's outfit because he likes the sweets. He likes baking. And I got a redemption. I have a redemption for people who, because I have like for my 100K plus redemptions, I have like, redeem like a VMA run in like any personality, any get up or whatever, or Vatashran or something. But for the people that don't care about that, I'm like, well, let me do this. Let me say I have to play for an hour as Budget Gandork. And he doesn't have gear, and he doesn't have like, weapons or anything like that. Well, one of our friends, one of our fellow streamers, no lollygagging, she requested that right when we go into the fun version of that trial. And I'm like, you know what? This is perfect. So I go in there, and then boom, 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 boom. He just punches away. And luckily, we have enough people that can do damage within that group. And that was just wonderful. And it worked, and people were rolling. It was so much fun.
That's really amazing. It was really fun to hear that story, and also to watch streams like that. And yeah, just real quick aside about Kev Do It. Kev Do It is actually the reason why I dance, because Kev Do It, for people who are not familiar with old Kev Do It videos, at the end of his ESO videos, I'd say the last thing you need to do to be really great at whatever he was talking about is dance. So that I was actually watching old Kev Do It videos, and that happened, and that's what spurred my mind one night. That's why we have the Dagoth dance. While it's not the same dance Kev Do It did, Kev Do It actually was in my mind in that moment. I went, oh, if we really want to be great, we have to dance.
Hits. That's incredible. I love that so much, because that was the first thing. Do you know how to do 1 million GPS when you're being against like that? But I love it.
So yeah, it's really, really great. You're such a great storyteller, hearing about like your journey, the people you watch, getting into streaming, what kind of kept you in streaming and how you kind of grew in streaming. We've talked a lot about Elder Scrolls Online. I want to talk a little bit more about that. But before we do, I always like to bring up the concept of burnout and pigeonholing. And I'm kind of curious, as somebody who has 4.5 thousand hours streamed, the next nearest game that you've done is Animal Crossing at 178 hours. So like the disparity between the Elder Scrolls and the other games is pretty big. How do you avoid like feeling burnt out or pigeonholed? Because I know you don't feel pigeonholed, because I've noticed you branching a lot into, and I'll talk a bit more about this later in the interview, more Nintendo games. So how do you get past the pigeonhole and the burnout of sticking with just one game for the vast majority of the content you do?
Well, it's actually kind of funny. I was doing Animal Crossing originally to try to avoid any kind of burnout, and I got burnt out recently on Animal Crossing, and my ESO keeps me from getting burnt out. I am a variety ESOer. I love people in the nicest way when they say there's nothing to do in the game. There's so many different things that I actually have never gotten burnout. I know that's not a thing. I know that I do probably. I know that there's, and everybody always says you got to avoid the burnout, and I'm always very conscious of it. But my not burning out on ESO is that because of all the different things to do in ESO, and I love them all. It'd be really hard for me to pick one thing that I love the most in ESO, because you could say, hey, Maddie, you want to fish all day today? It's Friday, fishing Friday. Okay. Hey, Maddie, you want to house? It's a Saturday stream. Do you want to relax? You want to just house today? Okay. Do you want to do some PvP today? Sure. I'll go and die a lot. Sure. Do you want to go and do a group arena? Yeah, sure. Let's go. do that. Hey, you want to go teach someone a regular arena? Yeah, sure. Go do that. Hey, do you want to do the Stibbins quest? I hadn't done the Stibbins quest in Blackwood. Oh my god.
Oh, multiplicity Stibbins.
Oh my god. I'm not going to ruin it for anybody else, but I can't believe I waited so long to do this one. I laughed. And because I love doing it at a nice, I think it took me like 3-4 hours, which it probably shouldn't take you that long. But we were laughing so much and doing every variation. And chat was being very nice and letting me figure stuff out on my own. Like I said, it takes a village. And it took me a while to figure this out. Oh my gosh. And I hadn't done that yet. And I was like, this is absolutely amazing. I had the best time. Did I think about what sets I was using? No. Was I trying to get meta gear? No. Was I worried about rankings? No. Was I doing anything? I was just having a blast and got to laugh at myself, laugh at the wonderful writing, got to laugh at the care that someone gave to a reoccurring NPC or pair of NPCs, in the game, and just how lucky we are to have someone that a dev that took so much care in it. It was just amazing. It was absolutely just amazing. So I really truly don't ever have a day. I might get tired because sometimes I'll just stream too much.
Right.
And the streaming too much came out of a necessity. You're familiar with it. And that's why I made sure to give, when you were going for partner, I made sure to give you a lot of encouragement and a lot of other people that came after me, the encouragement to stick with it, because when people would say, why or how did you stream for 14 hours last night? I said, well, at hour 8, I only had 65 for my day. And I was hoping I'd get a few more people. So I kept on going.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Tony Axe Out says something on our interview that I always hold to, and it's very true, which is I don't believe in partner pushes in regards to how most people do partner pushes, because it puts all the weight on your community to say, hey, I need you to be there. But at the same time, as much as you can give the advice, don't worry about the numbers, turn your numbers off, don't worry about the analytics. Yeah, when you get an email back the first time you apply that says you can apply in 4 more weeks, you have to completely shift your focus. Like you're saying, you have to shift your focus to these 4 weeks have to be the best 4 weeks. I have to pay attention to, like you said, I have to pay attention to numbers. I'm like, all right, I've averaged 82, but I did get a raid, and they look at raids. So, but our numbers are ticking up here at night. So yeah, I guess another 4 hours, So I'm glad to hear you say that, because I think, because after you get partner, you can kind of calm down a little bit on it. But when you're in the middle of it, it's like, it becomes this like all of a sudden numbers and analytics, and you have to like be producing good content. You still don't want to make anybody who's watching you like not enjoy the content, but you're also have that pressure. So
and nobody knows if you're doing it right. Nobody knows, and like I said, I didn't really mention it much even after I got partner, because I don't know why. I just like, because you like to think that they don't think you're thinking about numbers, but you are. And like I said, I would be watching, I'd have that number, see where it's ticking, see where it's going. And you mentioned, I'm glad you mentioned something about the raids. I got denied 6 times. And I was flabbergasted. Other people were flabbergasted. And, there's a lot of things, of course, that come into, to other stuff and everything. But anytime the excuse was, it's because you got rated too much, I would apply the next week. I would apply the next week, because I felt good that I was someone in a position where people wanted to raid me. That made me feel good. And I didn't want my brain to be like, raiding is bad if somebody gets it. So what I did is I just sent in an application. I didn't wait the month. I don't have too much little rebellions, but a little rebellious streak right there. I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to apply next week. And like, if you say it's more raids that I'm not getting, I'm just like, good. I says, I'm very fortunate. I've got a lot of loving people in this community that think enough of me to share their community with me. And I always thought that was special because I would see other people who are either solely variety or solely in a different game, and they don't have that community to lead on, and they're still trying to get, the partners and the pushing and everything. And I'm just like, it's like it's such a tough thing. We are very lucky that we have all of that connection in there. And like I said, I felt fortunate that so many people wanted to raid me, and I always was just like, I could understand, like, back in the day where, if you got partnered too easily because someone raided you with 14,000 people or something, and that was the reason you got it. But, no, I've got these people that, hey, they're thinking highly of me. And, if those people choose to stick around and do my stream, that should count, which it kind of does in some of the metrics. But
yeah, and the metrics, they change all the time, but I was the same way, where like, I'm not going to discourage people from rating me and stuff. It's just this new stat once you apply, for anybody who isn't a partner or can't apply for it, that suddenly shows up in your metrics, which shows you the percentage. But for me, it was just kind of like, I'm not going to discourage raiders, because I understand the metrics, like you said, from the perspective of getting rated by like a 20,000 viewer streamer one time, pushing the numbers up. But the way our little corner of the internet, our special little ESO thing works, is we support each other constantly with raids and stuff like that. So that's who we are. And if I was going to get partnered, it needed to be without changing like who I was.
And that in my low points, because there were low points,
there always
and I was, and I confided in a lot of wonderful people, and some that are my mods now, in those low times when you're questioning it. But I did finally get to a point where I rather have what I have as people who want to raid me and want to have that community connection and still be affiliate than to be partner and not have it. And I think when I truly believed that, and it wasn't just words, I felt better about myself. And then the time seemed to go by a little easier, where, you're going day to day. You're planning out what days will be better, to do a stream and a time. And it becomes a little too calculating, and I'd enjoy that part of it. And so, I'm glad it happened, when it did. For a lot of us, it's at that breaking point when you finally get it, and you're just like, okay, now I can relax again. So we all know the struggles of anybody who is out there, who is partner pushing in there. And, it's a tough haul. I think that's probably what gives you the most fortitude and really tests whether or not you want to do this, know?
And that was something that Thierry had said, that I also always like to bring up things that were said on past podcasts, because, it's about outlasting. Like, it's not a marathon, or sorry, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint, and it's about outlasting. By outlasting, it's like, whether it's going through years of small viewership or, not getting denied partner, whatever it is, on a long enough timeline, things play out. But it can take a long time before things click in that way, or it can take a short amount of time. But at the end of it, it's about sticking with it. And I think it was after my first denial, like the first denial was enough for me to go, we're still pushing for this, but if we push too hard at this, I'm going to lose sight of who I am. Because I do predominantly ESO, but I do other things. And I'm like, if I just do ESO, I'll probably get partnered quicker. But if I don't do the things that make me me, if we don't do the little marbles or the little bonus things, and we don't do my podcast because they have slightly less viewership, then really am I being true to myself? It's like I had to, like, kind of like you're saying, like somewhere in the denial phases, like you have to get hopefully to that point. And so anybody who's getting close to that, just remember, like, some people get it right away. Sometimes you get denied. Like somewhere in the denial phases, it kind of like clicks, because in a way that like helps you kind of get through and to lean on the people, like Maddie mentioned, in those times.
That's the answer to the question of why do we juggle? If you can have someone watch you while you juggle, they're going to watch you when you're PvPing. They're going to watch you when you're playing a different game. They're going to watch you when you're doing anything else. And that, it wasn't like a testing of anything for me. It was more kind of like, preparing the community for who you were. One of my favorite things is to have a very slow morning on Saturday mornings and make pancakes. I make pancakes while people listen to me make pancakes. I'm like, if people will listen to me make pancakes in the morning and coffee as I describe it to them, they're going to stick around and be with me in any type of content. And you know me with terms, like even the term variety. I like the term variety and how I use it, like you so eloquently put with variety, ESOer. But like, I don't even like saying that. I feel weird saying that like ESO is my main game. When I play other things, I'm like, the community's not changing when I'm doing that. They're still watching, they're still there, and if we want to kind of go on a little different thing for a little bit and then come back, then we're good. Now, I definitely think that's a luxury because of the ESO fam. We're such a unique and wonderful situation that we've got a home base, a true home base within that. And yeah, you might get, the most viewers that you have when you're doing your ESO content in there. But within your ESO content, never be afraid to branch out to keep you from that burnout. And that's a confidence thing. And it's easier said than done in there. It's easier said when you're partnered than when you're not.
Yes.
And like I said, I don't think I give everyone the courage or props to anyone who did a different game, a variety type situation while going after a partnership. That to me is absolute confidence and absolutely incredible to go and do that. For me, it wasn't sticking with just ESO because I wanted to get partnership that way. I wanted to get partnership for my ESO family.
Right.
I wanted to be part into that community. And as a lot of us know, and we can say this now, as soon as you get partnered, that's just the beginning.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Partnership takes the weight of getting partnered off your shoulders, kind of like getting affiliated did. And what I mean by that is I don't have a numerical goal I have to look at to get a check mark. But if I'm going to make this a career, I can't slow down. I can't change. I haven't suddenly made it. I don't get checks in the mail that mean I can not keep pushing myself by any means getting partnered. It's definitely just it's a really nice milestone that does help open up a few doors. Yeah.
And for me, it was always about the community. I wanted it for my community. There's two things my goals that I set out. And I was lovingly annoying in the process of I wanted to get Stream Team because I love the community so much. And I wanted to make them proud and be part of that, to not for any accolades of myself, but I knew with Stream Team came codes and gifts and things that I could shower upon my community. I wanted those things. I wanted to be a Twitch partner because I wanted to have access to all of these emotes that people could use and feel comfortable using anywhere that they went, And so it was never, the accolades were never mine. I always make sure that it was the accolades. I've played too much trumpet today. The mouth is starting not to work. Accolades for the community and what was going on. And God bless Gina for letting me annoy her as much as I did. For any, for amount of time when I wanted to, hey, what do you guys think about it? What do you guys think about it on the phone? I can't say. Oh, okay. A week later, hey, how you doing? You thinking about it? You thinking about what the next thing is? Just Maddie stuff. I'm like, okay. You know, or like the Twitch partners thing like that. 3-4 weeks was too long. That was too long. I'm like, I'm applying a couple weeks. Why? Because my community needs this. My community needs this that I am not giving up. And like we said, also, once you get it, to know that you're not going about face on your community.
Right.
That to me is one of the most important things that you, and it's not saying that you can't now feel more comfortable to go and play other games and stuff like that, but it's maybe it's the Italian in me that I'm like, you don't turn your back on the family. And you've got wonderful people in a wonderful ESO family, and that is a gift that not a lot of streamers get. And so I also, you know, like I said, at that time, I feel a little bit of an obligation, and I want to be a good you know, I want to represent the family very well.
Right.
And so that was most of my, you know, heading down that way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things you said there that I really want to touch on, just really briefly again. One of the big ones that you touched on is obviously family, and doing it for your community, which I think is super, super important. Because the reason I wanted to be a partner is, one, it opens up some doors because it's easier to talk to certain companies who don't understand Twitch when I try to get because I only take very small sponsors, and they always have to be ones that apply to what I'm doing, and it opens up doors to get prizes for people, which has been really kind of important, or fun giveaways or fun content. The other one for me, in addition to the emotes, was like, I wanted to be partnered, so I had transcoding, because I knew transcoding meant that all of my mobile viewers who watch me on mobile could downscale always as much as they needed to be able to watch me on their phones, and all of my people watching on broadband high like fiber internet could see it like at 1080p. And it was always important to me, like, because as an affiliate you get it sometimes, was being able to go, when I broadcast, you know, I can broadcast at 1080 now instead of like 720, but in addition to that, if someone's on a mobile connection where the internet's not as good, I don't have to look in chat. And physically, I would feel sad when somebody would be like, my internet's not really great today, you know, so I can't see your stream. And I'd be like, I'd check and I'd be like, oh, I don't have transcoding today, dang. Now I know that they can always see my stream. And that was so important to me because of that, like you're mentioning, the family, the community, being able to know that when I'm live, if they want to watch, they're able to at whatever frequency they need to, is so important to me.
And I didn't even know what transcoding was when I got into it. And then when I found out that that's a thing, again, that was another thing that just made me want to, I want to get this for the community. I want to get, like you said, you know, that becomes the push. And I think that someone who is trying to stream, trying to go after, you've got to come at it from that angle. I really think you've got to come at it at the angle that the things that you're doing are things for that community. And that community then will respond.
Exactly. And kind of speaking about response, because going back to other points you made, is if you do variety or you don't do variety, if you branch out, you're mentioning how like the community comes with you. And I'm so grateful for that. And I think that comes with embracing the weirdness, embracing your personality, because people know what I'm into. I talk about things I'm into, be it music or whatever, while I'm doing ESO. So if I go, hey, we're not abandoning ESO, but I really love story-driven indie games. There's this new game that came out called Road 96, and I've streamed it recently, and I'd love to play this. It's procedurally generated. We create the story as we go. It's way different than ESO. And I went into it going, okay, my numbers are going to drop significantly. And, you know, I never look at it as how many people are gone, it's how many people stayed, but I can't say I wasn't overwhelmed that 80% of the people who were watching me do ESO stayed, because that's usually a much bigger drop. And but you know, they know me, they know what I like, and they kind of like the same thing, so they stuck around for it and got into it, and it was really cool feeling. And I think that comes from what you're saying, doing it for family, doing it for the right reasons. They know you, they're going to listen to you, literally take them step through making pancakes, or in your case, you love Nintendo. If it means if it means it's time for the day, we need to hit the links, you know, we got to get some Mario Golf in.
Oh my gosh, when you were talking to Rich about the golf, I had a smile ear to ear. Oh, I was like, yes, more golfers.
I do in fact have an ulterior motive in bringing that up with Rich, knowing I was talking to you today and knowing there's other golfers in the community, because I do think we should do an ESO fam golf tournament
Yes.
Somebody asked that question too. I wish I remember who it was, because I was already like, oh, somebody's already on the same wavelength in the fam I am. I'm like, we need a good ESO fam, and not just streamers. Like, everybody in the fam, if you play some Mario Golf, let's get a little golf tournament going for those of us who have Mario Golf. So I do have ulterior motives in bringing it up, because I want to play golf with you all.
Well, and this is the thing that I liked about the Nintendo, because like I kind of put it as like, it's an additional thing we'll do at the end of the evening for either a palate cleanser or just, to, in a different way, have the community involved. Because the one nice thing about Nintendo games that I choose to do, it's real easy to play with the community, where you'll usually have a code that's up there for them to type in the chat, to type into their Switch, and they can join you. Golfing is a wonderful thing there. Animal Crossing was another one. We started with that, and people, I really love. I actually made a snow Khajiit in Animal Crossing.
Oh, really?
And the little island tune. Went dun 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 dun. That was the island tune. Because you could actually make that. So anytime anyone came into the office in Animal Crossing, you would hear that tune. And I say, so much of Animal Crossing was all the fashion and housing parts that we like of ESO and fishing in this cute little game, but you don't have the battles in there. And we were just, having a blast, and I think that's so. It's not just picking Nintendo stuff, but Nintendo things that we can all join in and play and experience and have some fun.
Yeah, it's not leaping from what the community's used to or the community does or ESO to something like way out there. It is another expression of the things that is already built up within the community.
Yeah, because we all know. I mean, we might think that the community is only playing one game, but our community is playing a lot of different games, out there. And a lot of us have Switches and are very actually. We were talking about Rich earlier with that. I was thinking about getting that game, and I knew Rich, is a golfer. And I was like, do you play golfing games? He's like, yeah, I was going to get that Mario game. I'm like, I'm going to get that Mario game. So like that. And so we ended up playing it on stream, and people loved watching it. And, I have no idea what my numbers were for that game, but I didn't care at that point. The people that were there were having a wonderful time. I was having a blast playing with my friend, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, that's really, like I think that's the special part about building up a community is, some people do just watch for one game, and that's fine. They only have so much time in their life. And that's why I always like to bring up, like, never look at what you've lost. Never go, oh, my numbers for this are down by 50. Instead, go look at your numbers no matter what they're, and go, oh, there's 60 people here. And I think having that mindset of it being part of the community, extended to the community, carries through. And I think it makes a world of difference between, I'm done with ESO, so we're going to do this other thing without any explanation, or just being like, hey, let's do a little palate cleanser. We're going to do some golf. We're going to do this, and like, come along with me while we try out this other thing. Right.
And one of the things that hurts the heart a little bit is if you find a streamer that doesn't realize that, hey, that's going to happen, and then turns around and blames the community.
Right.
That's for me. That's the biggest turnoff. I'm like, I would have followed you, but you're. It's the preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir on this. Is like, that's not how it is. You should be excited. That I kind of go the other way. I'm excited for two things when I play something different. I'm excited to see how many people are still there.
Yeah.
If I was like, I got 26 people watching me do Animal Crossing. I mean, that was more than I had ESO my first day when I was doing, because you gotta think of it at that old level. You gotta think you're starting within that community. And actually, a little side note with that, I was playing. Was it Mario Golf or was it? No, it was the we finished it up. It was Miitopia. It was like a little turn-based strategy. gaming, you could create your own characters, and we were having a lot of fun with that and being very creative. And I looked over at one time, and I was the top streamer in the Metopia category, and I was like 50 people. I'm like, yes.
And that's and that's the most amazing way to really think about that, is because that's how I also think about it too. Is like, even if my numbers dropped as some things, when I first started podcasting, they dropped significantly. Some games they dropped significantly, but I never go, oh, this is not my normal numbers. I went, man, if I had 35 people watching me podcast when I started, woo,
right?
like I'm, but yeah, and I also agree with something you said before. Like, I never named names or anything. I don't want to cast dispersion, but nothing turns me off a streamer than seeing somebody like retweet them and their tweet something like, the real true viewers are the ones that watch you play any game, or something like that. Kind of makes somebody who might want to watch your content, but hey, I got 35 minutes in a day. I want to watch ESO. You're not doing ESO. I'm going to pick a different ESO streamer. Like, I don't see the point of making people like that feel bad, because I value lurkers who lurk and only watch one of the games I do as much as the people who die hard no matter what I do. And so I agree with you. It's like, nothing kind of turns me off of a stream and makes me kind of go a different direction than somebody who puts like the weight on the people who don't go.
Yeah, and I feel for those people. I really do, because we all know, it's always the thing that you're scared to lose,
right?
Numbers or community. So I know that, but it's the backlash of putting on your community is the wrong way to go about it. You embrace, and that was one of the two things that I was mentioning. One of seeing like those, someone's actually watching me doing this. And on that note, a side note to my side note, is I've been doing Pokemon Unite. I know it's my first Pokemon game. I missed the whole boat on anything Pokemon, so I've been learning about Pokemon and how to say names correctly and everything. It's the village, teaching me and stuff. I was so happy that when I started, I didn't have anybody that was playing with me. I would just do solo games people watch. The last 2 times I've streamed it, we've had a full group of people, 5 people go in. So everybody, and people kind of waiting and taking turns. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And the second thing I was going to really mention was the that I'm getting people that watch me for Pokemon Unite, and that's all they watch me for. And I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's absolutely amazing.
And that's the wonderful thing about it. And that's another thing for anybody who's listening who might worried about losing viewers and things like that and not know how to process it. When you first go into a new game, don't look at your numbers dropping the first time. If you're an analytical person like myself, you look at the analytics and go, oh, they were down this one time and bail. Coming from a background in analytics, you actually need 3 to 4 months to gauge something. And if you spend months in something, and that's what happened with this podcast, that's why the viewership stays the same when I go into a podcast, sometimes even goes up, is I didn't run away from it because my numbers were down. I stuck with it, and people start to realize, oh, you do this game. And like you said, now you're starting to grow within Unite. So I think hearing your story and combining it with, like, you need to kind of if you are passionate about something, doing something, you love doing it with your community, it's key to stick with it for a bit. Because if you think about how you initially grew in any game that you did before, it was by sticking with it and being part of the community.
And I remember when I was writing, because when you're applying for a Twitch partner, you do a little write-up to talk about your community and what you bring to it. And I remember in one of my kind of frustrating ones a little bit, I kind of was saying, almost in a way of convincing them to, for the partner, was that if you look at my week, I like would average way above, that. But I would have several days because, hey, those are days that's, because we usually tend to stream to an older crowd. Those are dinner nights, those are dinner nights that they're having with their family. Or I was streaming in the morning that morning and people were lurking from work as much as they could to support me, but it's during the work day, and so that's why, like, at the beginning of my stream, I might have had like 40, but by the time I got to the end of the evening, it was like at 90, so there's ebbs and flows, and I crafted it really nicely, but I was like, there's ebbs and flows to my content and everything. But I hope if you see, that I generally usually will keep up a 70, and so. You know, so it's rough. So I you know, a lot of that stuff, you know, is we've all gone through it. We all know, you know, how that can tax you. So it's
I feel like I need to tell a real quick story here because I think it's funny hearing about everybody's application letters. I was not frustrated, but I had gotten to a point in my head, I'm like, we're not going to get it this time. Literally, the one application that got accepted, I wrote on stream. I pulled it up on stream. I said community.
Nice.
Sakar was there, Demon Cat Daphne, they were both in chat, and Sakar's like, make sure you mention that you did a podcast with recent partner streamer Sakar, and I'm like typing it in. And it was just like a short, like, I'd done my essays, I'd done my explanations, and I'm like, so we just kind of typed it up, and I go, okay, I'm going to send it off. We'll see how that goes. And then like 3 days later, live and stream, there I was partnered. I'm like, I have no idea how your system works, but
yeah, you really don't. You really don't. That's a wonderful story. I'm glad you told that. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was just like, let's write this together, chat. Let's tell them why our community should be. And that was one that got it, so it's kind of cool. But
yeah, and that's the perfect example of write what you are, write who you are, and not try to cater it to somebody. I think actually the one that I got on it, I was like, I'm blessed to have wonderful people who raid me. I'm blessed to have all these things. I'm a tea leaf. I'm a wolf from Biz Lobo. I'm a ninja from that. They've all influenced me, and I want to become part of this wonderful partner community as well. And then, I think it was like a week later or something like that, I got the thing. You know, so it feels cliche to say be who you are, and the people will show. You'll find your congregation. You know,
right?
You'll find your congregation.
And I think finding your congregation goes back to kind of the same sentiments about not worrying about things outside of your control or worrying about the people that are not there. Because I know I'm a weirdo who dances. I know I have, as I like to say, chaotic gremlin energy. And if people don't want chaotic gremlin energy, maybe they want cozy lo-fi vibes, you know? Yeah. Instead of worrying about getting the cozy lo-fi vibes, I can be like, hey, you know who has great cozy lo-fi vibes? Deimos Thea. Oh, you like some sweaty ass PvP? There's Pain. You want some music? There's Maddie. But you want some like chaotic gremlin energy? Some not so good dancing, but I feel good about dancing? All right, let's hang here for a bit. So,
well, you know what? When I first came into your stream the first time, you were doing that weird, and you were doing your dance, and my first thought was, I'm here. I didn't watch one thing of gameplay. I didn't watch one thing that you were doing. You couldn't tell. I didn't know if you're PvP, PvE, housing, whatever, and stuff. I'm like, I'm down. And all I saw was you dancing and doing your thing, and I think I was blowing up your chat with like, this is the best thing. I love it. The dance moves, this is how I dance too. I think I got up and started dancing. I'm like, there we go. Yeah. Embracing the weird, that's my thing. So I'm like, you know, you got a viewer on that one.
That's perfect. Exactly. That's why you got to embrace the weird, embrace who you are. Thank you so much, Matygon, for joining us today. Thank you for being part of the podcast.
That was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.